1990 and a half. I actually graduated, I was a December grad, and then I stayed and got my graduate degree, and I got half funded through MOTSE. That's who, and it was Penn State was the lead university at the time. So it wasn't it was Mid-Atlantic University Transportation Center, right? So that was what made MOTSE. So sustainability, when did that get added? That's interesting.
That was a recompetition in July.
So this is actually something that happens quite a bit in these kinds of things. I mean, I work for the federal government, and so, things get rebranded quite a bit. And so sustainability, livability is one of the big issues that we're dealing with now. So I'm interested that it's now the MAP UTC versus what I remember it as MOTSE, because sustainability has been added to the charter or to the charge or whatever and I'm guessing there's a sustainability element to all the research that's done, and right. So that's what happens, right? So when we get an issue like sustainability or livability or something like that, it will become part of what we do, and then it flavors all the research that we do, the work that we do. So that's kind of interesting to me, right? So
I just made it so we can't see it, but 75% of people online say they want to be transportation or are transportation.
Great.
One person's not sure, and one person's something else.
Okay.
But so, I think the people in the room are transportation grad students, so hopefully they will all be, hoping to be transportation.
Great. Well, it is a really interesting career. I mean, one thing about transportation, and I was actually a traffic person. That was my area of expertise, and I really liked cars, still like cars. So traffic, ITS operations, that actually ended up being what was my specialty when I joined Federal Highway, which at the time I didn't really have a specialty. And so when I joined Federal Highway, I kind of had a choice of some places that I wanted to get into. But at that time, IVHS, I'm dating myself, IVHS, and then which became ITS operations, that was what was the new push. Again, one of those like sustainability, livability, ITS operations, that was the big push in traffic. So that's how I ended up in that field. So when I left here, ended up in the public sector. I have had a 22-year career with Federal Highway, which is also hard to believe. When I say stuff like that, I feel like I should sit down, because it's just hard to imagine that I'm that person. I met people, I've been with Federal Highway 30 years, 42 years, and I thought, my God, that's longer than I've been alive. These people have had careers with this one agency longer than I've been alive, and now I'm becoming that person. But I have moved 8 times in 22 years. So that has allowed me to keep my career fresh. So I guess that's one of the things that I would offer y'all as you move forward in your careers. If you have opportunities to move, even if it's within your company or your public sector agency or whatever, that is one way to keep yourself fresh as you are developing your career, as you're moving forward, is to keep yourself open for mobility opportunities. And there are a lot of folks that are not mobile for very legitimate reasons. 2-career families may not want to take their children out of school. And so if you are mobile, particularly early in your career, you have an opportunity to use that as a way to move up as you develop your career. So that's just something to remember, that mobility can be an interesting opportunity. Plus you get to see how people do different things all over the country, right? So after I left UVA, which was a tremendous way to spend my college years, I really enjoyed it. Then I started with FHWA. I spent on the training program 6 months in Washington, D.C., 6 months in San Francisco, 8 months in Chicago on loan to the Illinois DOT, working in that office, 4 years in our Baltimore office. Oh, do I need to move the mouse?
Yeah.
4 years in our Baltimore office, then 2 years in Los Angeles. Being the traffic engineer for Los Angeles was very cool, right? So I did that for 2 years, then came back to Washington, D.C. for 4.5 years, then went out to Santa Fe, New Mexico for 5 years, and now I have been in Nashville, Tennessee for a little over 5 years. So in 22 years, Nashville is now the longest place that I've lived by about a month and a half. I just recently, passed the 5-year mark, so I've been in Nashville for about 5.5 years. Every time I moved up. So So I ended up in positions of increasing responsibility, allowed me to do different things, and now I'm in a management position. So I'm no longer working in engineering stuff per se, and I'm in a management position. So the division administrator I am the head fed for Tennessee. Administrator. In Virginia, it's Irene Rico. So if y'all have ever had a chance to meet Irene Rico, she's my counterpart for Virginia. She's also equivalent to the commissioner for VDOT, right? So this allows me a tremendous opportunity to use my engineering knowledge in, kind of almost in a political environment to help solve problems. I don't do a lot of engineering stuff, but the problems that we solve, my engineering background really helps me with that. But if you had told me that one day I would be in this position, I'd have probably put $5 on the table that would never have happened. I saw myself as a career engineer doing technical work, and I was perfectly thrilled to do that. That's what I thought I was going to be when I grew up, and these opportunities opened up, and I was able to take advantage of them. So, so that's kind of how I ended up in 22 years later. When you move every so often, it kind of sneaks up on you how many years you've been with one particular agency. I don't know if folks are going to be asking questions, so if you want to just put them in the chat pod or interrupt me, good luck interrupting me. I kind of get on a roll. So if you need to send up a flag or something, say stop talking, I have a question, I'm totally okay with that. All right. So kind of the public sector, let me talk a little bit about the public sector and help me make sure I'm on kind of going where you need me to go. I'm looking at Brian and okay. All right. So working in the public sector is a little bit different than working in the private sector. And it's important that you understand what it is that you're trying to accomplish, what do you want out of your job, out of your career. And you can switch back and forth, no question. But as you are working, to determine what it is that you want to do and what service you want to provide, do you want to work in the private sector or do you want to work in the public sector? Because I will tell you, the public sector, we don't do it for the money or the glory. Okay, we do it for public service. It's called public service. It's public service. So, I do it to make the world a better place. I do it to help people get to where they need to be safely, faster. You get home to your family at night. You get to your job in a timely manner. You can come home. You get home in a timely manner so that you can spend time with your family. You can get safely where you need to be for recreation, shopping, all that stuff. I do that because I want to get people to where they want to be safely and as quickly as possible. I want to serve the public. I get a big charge out of that. There's a lot of self-satisfaction in doing that. Right? I have no issue with folks that work for the private sector, but that kind of work, while I respect it and I have a tremendous number of friends in it, that wasn't for me. Right? I wanted to serve the public. So I work for one of the interesting things about the Federal Highway Administration, and I would guess so about Federal Transit and some of the other U.S. DOT modal agencies that we work with, we actually get to see the benefit of our work. There's a lot of federal agencies that are so far removed from the public that they don't actually get to see the benefits of their labor. I do. I can look outside my window and I can see roads, I can see traffic, I can see trucks, I can see buses. I work very closely with the Tennessee Department of Transportation to deliver projects, to help them solve their problems, to make sure they get their money. And my work is directly, I can look out the window and see what I do. There's a lot of feds that can't say that, right? Where they're just so far removed from their citizens. But I'm fortunate in that regard. Yes.
What's the relationship between the Federal Highway Administration and the Department of Transportation or local or national level?
Okay. So the question was, what's the relationship between the Federal Highway Administration and your state DOT? So we'll call it the state DOT in general, and your local agencies as well?
Yeah.
Okay. So my agency, FHWA, not FHA, FHA is the Housing Administration, okay? So FHWA, there's a couple of things that we do. The biggest thing that we do is collect your federal gas tax. So when you buy a gallon of gas at the pump, actually you don't pay at the pump, you pay at the distributor, but that's the detail. When you buy a gallon of gas, 18.6 cents of every gallon of gas, and it's a flat tax. If the cost of gas goes up or the cost of gas goes down, it's a flat 18.6 cents, goes into what's called the Highway Trust Fund, okay? Every state has its own gas tax, so I really don't know what the gas tax in Virginia is. It's a test. Anybody?
No, there is.
I know.
They haven't raised it, so when they had
Oh, is that the one? Is it a whole thing? I remember that. There was a thing, right?
They,
Y'all, there was a,
I think the actual tax per gallon is the same as like 88 or something.
Yeah.
But they needed to raise more money, and they didn't raise that. They actually did.
They did a sales tax? Okay,
So
right.
there's still, I think what was there before is still there.
Now there's just some more on top?
So
Okay,
instead of raising that, which was so difficult politically,
right. That's true. It's very, very difficult to raise the gas tax, period. Yeah. So let's use Tennessee because it's easier. So in the case of Tennessee, it's 21 cents a gallon, right? So 21 cents a gallon for the state gas tax goes into the state trust fund for the use of the DOT. 18.6 goes into the FHWA Highway Trust Fund with all the 18.6 cents per gallon from every other state in the country. It all goes into one massive giant pot. And then we redistribute, my agency redistributes it to all the states in a proportional basis, okay? So for instance, I can't speak to Virginia, I apologize, I should have done some more research on Virginia, but for Tennessee, Tennessee receives $800 million from the Highway Trust Fund to build roads in Tennessee. That's what I get. Don't get me wrong, but my job is to spend $800 million every year, right? Yeah, right? So I work with the state DOTs to do that. So that's probably the main thing that FHWA is responsible for, is administering the funds for road construction around the country, okay? Depending on the kind of road, depends on how much money we provide. So for instance, the interstate, we pay 90% of the work to do on the interstate. Everything else, for the most part, is 80%. That remaining 10% and remaining 20%, that's what the state gas tax money is used for, to match the federal funds, okay? Does that make sense? So
you do not directly involve into the project construction?
we are, I'm going to get to that. So after we administer the funds, we are responsible for ensuring that the state DOTs and local agencies all around the country build the roads consistent with the federal rules. So do y'all talk about NEPA? Do y'all talk about NEPA, Environmental Protection Act, or Policy Act, I should say? Do y'all talk about environmental stuff that you have to make sure that, you know, you're not adversely impacting the environment when building roads? We administer the NEPA program, right? So FHWA watches over the state DOTs and local agencies to make sure that they are not violating certain rules, right? Environmental Policy Act, Civil Rights Act. We're not building roads in low-income areas, just displacing low-income people to build roads. That's another area that we keep an eye on. The manual, do y'all do MUTCD work, the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices? Come on, MUTCD, let's hear it for the MUTCD. So the manual to make sure that all stop signs are red with a white border and 8-sided and say stop, that manual we also maintain. So as you drive around from place to place, you don't notice, right? You don't notice when you cross the border. The roads stay pretty much the same. Green signs, green overhead signs, blue signs, gas, food, lodging, brown signs tell you where you've got places to visit. All those signs, all those design standards, Federal Highway maintains those and ensures that the state DOTs build to those standards. Okay? So while we don't necessarily build stuff, the state DOTs and the local agencies build stuff. We overlook it, we watch it, we inspect it.
So it's like there are contracts, so you contract those things to different
The state DOT is the one who contracts for construction. Okay? We just give the money, and then we go and we inspect, we check, we audit. I'm sorry?
We do oversight.
We do oversight.
So, and if I can interrupt, so there's
Yes.
questions online.
Great.
So one of them is related to this whole public-private So Zachary Hansen asked, is it more common for people to switch from public to private or vice versa? Is it difficult skill set?
It's not difficult. Thank you, Zachary, for your question. It's not difficult to switch from public to private. It's not difficult to switch from private to public either. So a lot of it depends on what it is that you're looking to accomplish. Sometimes in the private sector, public sector people oftentimes, depending on the agency, don't actually get to do hands-on design. There are a lot of public agencies, state DOTs, local agencies that contract out all their design. If you want to do design and you're interested in the public sector, check with those agencies to make sure that they actually do design in-house versus contracting that out. If you really are interested in doing design, you might want to go work with the private sector. So the skills that you gain in either one are useful in the other one. So for instance, in the public sector, you learn how projects are contracted, how they're developed, how agencies decide where to do what they do. You can take those skills into the private sector to help you understand how your client is going to want to have that road designed and built, right? And then vice versa, you're in the private sector, you can come into the public sector, you understand how the private sector works, you can put your request for proposals, you can put your design, all the stuff that you would do with your public agency, you put that in a language that the private sector is going to understand because you have that skill set. So we see a lot of switching back and forth, and it's encouraged. I mean, each of us bring something important to the table. So I don't know, Zachary, if that answers your question.
Thank you. Yeah, it does.
Yeah, I would say it's probably 50-50. I mean, people come and go. I know that sounds bad, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have another question from Krista Rogers. What kind of options for management degree holder in transportation? What locations are in need for people like me? I'm working on my master's and I love transportation, but I'm not sure what kinds of jobs to apply for.
So Krista, tell me, what's your master's in?
Master's currently is MBA, but I think I'm probably going to switch to like human resource management or something.
Okay. Well, if you switch to human resource management, that may actually put you down a particular path. So if you're interested in human resource management and transportation, there's probably a lot of work that you can do, both private sector and public sector, right? So there's a lot of recruiting that happens in the public sector as well as in the private sector. So if you end up in human resource management, you can still work in the transportation field. I don't think you'll be doing design stuff, but you will certainly be working in the management area. And I could see where you might be able to take those degrees and move beyond just HR, but into management, either administrative management in the public sector where you're over contract administration, finance, human resources, procurement, that kind of stuff. That's where you can move into that probably from HR management with your transportation background in the public sector, and then in the private sector you can stay in HR and then work into corporate management, I would guess.
Okay. Thank you.
There's a lot of opportunities for if you have some business background, if you take business classes. I understand there's a sort of like a minor in the comm school or something that the engineering school is looking at.
So at UVA, there's a engineering business minor at the undergraduate level.
That would have been cool. If I had had an opportunity to do that, I think that would have been cool. It's only to expose myself to kind of the business end of transportation. That might have, influenced where I might have gotten a job. I will tell you, when I graduated in 1993 with my master's degree in Virginia, and I will tell you, I was not ready to leave Virginia. My parents were still up in Northern Virginia, and I was ready to be out on my own, but not that far. I was not ready to go that far. And at the time, there was a move in the public sector, and I can understand it now. At the time, I did not understand this. But there was a move at the time in Virginia to use a lot of the state money for things other than transportation. So education, health, there was a big effort by that particular governor's administration to move money out of transportation. What I now understand with the match money, that 10% and 20% that I talked a little bit about, where the state will use that money to match the federal money to build roads. If there's no match, there's no federal money, right? So a lot of that money was not used in transportation. So so VDOT was not hiring because VDOT was not building roads, right? Their capital program, their construction program had been reduced significantly since they weren't hiring private sector firms to do design or inspection or anything else like that. So I had a really hard time finding a job. So I came back and went to grad school. But that was one of the things that I found. So I would do a little bit of, if you're interested in an area, not here, even here in Virginia or wherever you are, for the folks that are on the phone, if you're interested in moving to an area, you might want to do a little market research on what's going on in transportation in those areas to make sure that, one, that's a place that you want to go and that there is opportunities for you there. Because I found out the hard way, not understanding at the time, that the amount of money in the public sector in transportation has a direct impact on both the public sector hiring as well as private sector hiring. I didn't get that at the time, right? I can look back on it. All I knew is I just wasn't getting a job. That's all I understood, right?
Right. Thank you.
So another person online just said how she's a civil engineering major, but she's in between environmental and transportation, so she's here to learn. So here's
Okay. Can I answer any questions about environment stuff for you, Ivy?
I don't know if everybody can talk to it, but we'll see if she can type something in.
Okay.
So then, of course, more questions from...
And the question, if I understand the question, maybe she's asking, she's trying to decide, focusing within civil, whether to go more the transportation route or the environmental engineering
Right,
route.
so I think what it is because we were asking, are you transportation, are you something else, are you not sure?
So you can do both. So let me say that right now I have 23 people that work for me, and I supervise, I lead, I manage, I lead the other 23 folks in finance, administration, environment, planning, engineering, what you think of, engineering design stuff, safety, operations. I'm leaving somebody out, I know. And like I think I said environment. I'm going around my office thinking about all the program areas that we work. So you can do both, Ivy. For what it's worth, while you can, if you're interested in both transportation and environment and you have an opportunity to take classes in both, do that. If you have an interest in anything and when you're in school, you have an opportunity to take classes in various topics. I realize we have a fairly rigid, but where you have a little bit of flexibility, if you have an interest in another area and your program allows you to do that, take a class in it. It will either help you decide that you like it or you don't, okay? My undergrad thesis, while I hated every second of it while I was here, was in materials, okay? And people are laughing, you know what I'm talking about, was in materials. I spent one summer in the pavement lab up on the hill there, and I thought, my God, I cannot spend my life in a pavement lab. It's smelly and it's hot. Okay? I loved the work, but I thought this is not what I want to do for the rest of my life. Right? So that helped me eliminate that. Knowing what you don't want to do is just as important, even more so, than what you do want to do. My graduate thesis was in transit. I thought that's what I wanted to do. No, right? I learned a ton, not what I wanted to do. So I was able to, now I have those experiences, but I was able to eliminate that from my list of things that I wanted to be when I grew up. Not transit, not materials, traffic, cars, operations, ICS. Love it. Right?
So that's an interesting lesson for folks in the room that, like,
Yeah.
What your master's thesis was is what, you learned that that's what you weren't interested in pursuing.
But I have those experiences when I talk with materials folks. I mean, granted, that was a long time ago. I'm not completely clueless about the conversation. Transit stuff, I'm not completely clueless about the conversation. When I was with FHWA, so many places we could move, so many things that I could do. I made a list of all the places I didn't want to go first. Right? That was actually a bigger list than where I did want to go, and I didn't realize that until I had made the list.
Tilton has a question, but also Ivy did ask, so do we know of any internships with FHWA that are still accepting applications?
So there is the SCEP program, actually, let me see, hang on. The program now is called Pathways. Does that sound familiar to you, Ivy? You can type yes or no. So Pathways is the way to get into FHWA. There is I think the program, it used to be a SCEP program, a summer SCEP. Summer program, okay? So SCEP, there's also the SIPDIG, so I work for the federal government, we have ridiculous acronyms. SIPDIG, STPDG, STPDG. Those are the programs that I would look at, Ivy, that I would search, but the Pathways program, if I'm not mistaken, is the way to get into all of them. Some of them take a rolling application, some of them are date-based. Mm-hmm.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I know the program Pathway, but is it only the job application was posted in the USA job?
Correct.
So it's based for only US citizens. So is there any internship campaign to international students?
So, unfortunately, the answer to that is no. You're not the first person to ask me that question, and I'm actually disappointed to say that that's no, that the answer to that is still no. Those programs are intended for U.S. citizens, and I think that's limiting, particularly for students. There's several of us that have tried to at least make that pitch to say for these kinds of internships, we should open this up to anyone who would like to learn. But right now, the program is limited to U.S. citizens.
So can I follow up a little bit on your question? So for the full-time position, do you hire international students in?
I don't think so. I think it's still U.S. citizens for full-time positions. I think so. For federal positions, yeah.
How about for VDOT?
VDOT, I believe, does hire,
I can't speak to VDOT. Question was whether or not VDOT and maybe the state DOTs will hire international students.
Probably state by state.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it seems like we not hired, not.
Or it depends. It depends on the job category.
Yeah, probably any person hiring has to decide whether they want to go through paperwork to hire or not.
There's paperwork to hire a citizen, too.
That's for sure. Yeah. So
I do spend a lot of time doing paperwork, I will say that.
Okay. So Tilton had a question earlier?
Yes.
Quick question, whether it be in public sector, such as the HWA or the DOT, or in the private sector, what about opportunities within research, within transportation?
So research, most of it's done obviously through universities, and thankfully for that, or none of us would be here, right? So I am also a product of that same program. So research is also very dependent on funding, and when money gets tight, and it's tight now, I will tell you, money is tight on the federal level, and therefore it's tight on the state level. When money gets tight, there are areas that will get cut first, right? Training is one, and research is another one, okay? So, because those are deemed to be good to have when there's money. So the issue really, and I'll tell you in a very real world, if it comes down to filling potholes or doing research, the state DOT is going to fill potholes, right? That's just the world that we're living in, okay? So money is really tight right now with the private sector. With the public sector. On the federal level, we only have authorization for funding through the end of May. Congress is going to have to do something, because at that point we are no longer able to pay the state DOTs 100% of what we said we were going to pay them. So that causes a bunch of other issues. But research is one of those things that gets cut when money gets tight. Right?
I think back to your question.
I'm sorry, but is there opportunities, careers? Oh, yeah. I'm sorry.
There's Turner Fairbank.
Yes, there is Turner Fairbank. So the research arm, and I will tell you, for Federal Highway, when I was here, I thought Federal Highway was Turner Fairbank. I didn't realize that there was like, that's like this much of federal highway, and federal highway's this big, Turner Fairbank is this big. That's what I thought federal highway was just Turner Fairbank, because of the work that I had done here. So they are full-time researchers. They are internationally known researchers. There's people from other countries that call Turner Fairbank to do research. If there's a disaster, a bridge collapses, if there's a crisis, something happens, Turner Fairbank will be brought out as experts. If y'all are familiar right now what's going on with the guardrail testing with ET Plus Trinity, have you talked about that with your students?
Probably not.
Okay. If you search, there was an issue regarding guardrail. There's some concerns with the guardrail that's out there, and a lot of it is made by this one particular company out of Texas, that it's not safe. A lot of the testing that was done Research Institute out of Texas. That was also in Texas. San Antonio. Yeah, in San Antonio. So they actually were the group that we hired, and Turner Fairbank went out to do to do the follow-up testing. So there's a lot of real-world research that actually goes on. These Texas Transportation Institute, Southwest Research, university level, Turner Fairbank. There is a lot of opportunities. There's not as many jobs as there are in, say, necessarily the rest of the industry. Highly, highly specialized. So if you are interested in doing a highly specialized focus area, research in those facilities might be a place for you to look.
So,
Most of them require a PhD. Not all of them do, but many of them do. Because again, it's highly specialized, very technical research.
I mean, as I know, Professor Stephen Chase is also working in Federal Highway Administration before he joined.
Yeah, he was,
structural aspect.
right, and he was one of the chief scientists at Turner Fairbank before he retired from Federal Highway.
Who's this?
Stephen Chase, he's a number.
Okay.
Research scientist.
In what area?
Structures.
Structure.
So yeah, and he worked, he basically,
Also in because I'm working with structure and materials. So I also, because before I did not sense opportunities in transportation. It's not just about transportation, it's about the system of the bridge material.
So I was going to go back to, and actually, Ivy, your question about whether you wanted to do environment and transportation. So, by the way, I'm a total stream of consciousness talking person. So I'm all over the place. You got to keep me back on track, and you got to keep me on time, too, because I'll stand here and talk all afternoon. Going back to the question is, since I was talking about all the folks that work with me in all those discipline areas, we do a lot of stuff cross-discipline. So, nobody's just working on their own. Right? So we do a lot of, the problems that we solve, the issues that we deal with, they might have a little bit of an environment issue, but it's in a road construction issue. So we've got an engineering design issue that impacts environment. Sometimes there might be a finance question of whether or not that type of funding is eligible for that kind of activity. We might be looking at whether or not this is an endangered species in this road that we're trying to build that is right next to a what we call an environmental justice community, which might be a low-income or minority community. So it's very rare that we have a single issue problem. We don't have single issue problems. We have multi-issue problems. So I think it was Ivy, you were talking about you weren't sure what you wanted to do when you grew up. So you may not have to pick. You may be able to do environment in transportation. You may be able to do transportation in an environment firm. So my point is that you will likely be exposed to a whole bunch of different stuff that you're not even thinking about. That's what happened to me. I think that probably happens to a lot of folks. Did you ever think you were going to be here doing this, Emily? No?
Probably.
Yeah. I got her with a mouthful of food. She's eating her lunch. I waited until you had taken a bite of your sandwich. So you just never know. So while it's important to understand what you're doing right now, just know that you don't lose an opportunity when you get when you graduate. You don't lose your opportunity to do all that other cool stuff that you didn't get a chance to do when you were in school. Yeah, that wasn't a test, Ivy, to see if you were still listening, but thank you for that. Yes.
Since we will finish our master
Right. I don't know if you all heard the question. The question was, does getting a PhD or a master's have an impact on your career? Okay. I guess it depends, right? It depends on what you want to do. If you want to do research, if you want to work in an academic environment, and actually, Brian, I'll ask you to comment on that. I mean, if you're going to work in an academic environment, you want to teach, you want to do research. I mean, is Dr. Chase, is he a doctor or is he a mister? He has a PhD. Okay. So depending on if you want to do research and if you want to be in an academic situation, I think you have to have your PhD for the most part, right? It's rare, I think, for a master's or even an to rise up in that kind of environment. If you want to work in the private sector doing design, if you want to do work in the public sector, just, I'll say general work, not specifically related to research, not academic, this is my personal experience, okay? A PhD is not necessary, okay? A PhD is not necessary. I have a master's degree. I have a master's degree because I couldn't find a job, right? I had intended, I'm being honest with y'all, I had intended to go back and get a master's degree, but I was going to work first. I had been going to school for 22 years. I didn't want to go to school anymore, right? And so I wanted to go get a job. I couldn't find a job, got a master's degree. I realize now that if I had gotten a job, I wouldn't have a master's degree because I couldn't have done both. I am completely in awe of people that can work full-time and go get a master's degree. I don't have that kind of attention span or that kind of energy. So it was good for me that I kept going. Okay, I think in the private sector world, you might make a little bit more coming in with a master's degree. That's not true. I actually did come in a little bit higher in the federal government structure, but as of right now, having a master's degree adds to my technical credibility, but does not add to my salary at this level, right? So it's probably good at the entry level, but soon you will blend in with everyone else.
Would you argue that maybe it's getting more competitive as you advance through the ranks? You got no background.
I realize what I just said sounded like it was not important to have a master's degree. That's not true. That's bad, right? No, that's not true. That's not true.
I'm not fishing for
I realize, no, Brian, when you asked the question, I was like, dang, Pam, that did not come out the way I had intended it. It is a competitive thing, particularly getting in. Again, it's all, once you get into wherever it is that you're trying to go, the hard part's getting in. Once you get in, then you develop your reputation, you work hard, people get to know what you're capable of, all that stuff that builds who you are, your reputation, then that's how you will move forward. Having a master's degree is helpful for that, and it is in a competitive nature. It's something to look at that you did say you got a master's degree, you got a focus area, you have a little bit more knowledge in this particular area than maybe somebody else that has a bachelor's degree. But once you get into the working world, it's your reputation, how hard you work, the exposure that you have. That's what's going to move you forward, not your academics. It doesn't hurt, it helps, but you really need to develop yourself your reputation as an employee, as a worker. Right? That's what's going to advance you. Okay. All right.
Yeah, I don't think we have questions there, but, so, at what point did you have to give up the traffic tolling? Like, I guess you go down into the management thing.
That was hard. Okay, that was really hard. I like traffic. I still like traffic. My traffic guy, I feel bad for him. So the good news is that I'm a traffic person, so I help him. The bad news is I'm a traffic person, so I help him. So he gets help whether he wants it or not, because I just like it. And so I probably ended up giving the traffic stuff up when I moved from Los Angeles back to Washington, D.C. and got into, I was heading up the National Architecture Program. Do y'all do architecture stuff here with ITS? No? Ryan, you should. It's fascinating, right? So the architecture, systems engineering rules that we have for ITS and operations, we'll have a conversation about this later. When I took over that program, to managing that program back in Washington, that's pretty much, I think, when I gave up the traffic stuff. I was able to maintain it while I was in Los Angeles, so I'm going to say maybe halfway through my career, 40% of the way through my career, I ended up giving up the traffic stuff. But I was a little bitter about it. I was not okay with it initially. Initially, I was not okay with it because I really liked it. But then I learned I had to give it up.
Is it possible to be a technical person for
Yes,
20, 30 years?
you absolutely can be a technical person for 20, 30 years, your entire career. Dr. Chase, right? So he's a perfect example. He spent, 20, 30 years with FHWA maintaining his technical expertise. Again, now I'm talking about someone who is highly specialized, right? But then came and is doing technical work here at the university. So yes, you can. We have folks at FHWA, and I think there are folks in the private sector who are 20, 30 years, not PhDs, not doing research, doing, real work in the real world, but they are technical experts. And I thought I was going to be that person. I thought I was going to be a technical person forever. And when I escaped the orbit of technical work and got into management, nobody was more shocked than me. So yes, you can absolutely say. I have friends of mine that their worst nightmare is my job. Right? They'd much rather stay in the technical world because they don't have to deal with politics. They don't have to supervise anybody. They don't have to deal with that kind of paperwork. And they can continue to work real world design, helping local agencies and state DOTs solve their problems on a technical level.
So
So you can do that.
So when you make the transition, so do you have any kind of preparation, mind preparation, or academic preparation to help you move to the manager side? Because you can sometimes you need to know what you're going to do about.
The question was whether or not I was prepared to move into management from technical.
Yes.
The folks that worked for me said I was not ready. So I did take some classes, some training through FHWA. I did some actually reading on my own, leadership books. There's I'll just give this, you manage projects, you lead people, right? So understanding the difference between leading and managing is one of the first steps in the process, okay? So you manage things, projects, stuff, you to move up in the organization, and so I had a mentor that recommended different opportunities for me, different training classes for me. That's important to find mentors that can help you. If you see somebody in a position that you're interested in, or even, ooh, that's my phone, sorry, that you might be interested in, hang on, sorry. I guess football season's over. I need to change my ringer. Sorry. What was I saying? Oh, mentors, right. So mentors, if you find someone who's in a position that you're interested in or you might be interested in, Ivy, are you the one that, no, somebody was interested in HR, Krista? Is that you? If you find somebody who is in potentially HR management, someone that, go visit with them, talk to them, find someone who's in where you might want to be, and talk with them about how did they get there, okay? So I had someone who recognized in me something, some intangible, I guess, leadership skills, whatever the term is, steered me to certain training classes. I did a lot of reading on my own. I observed people that I admired, right? And when opportunities presented themselves, I put myself in positions where I would learn, fail. We learn more from our failures than we learn from our successes. I have failed quite a bit, right? But I have learned a lot. So I put myself in positions to be either successful or a tremendous failure, but, tried to be a success first. But, so that's how I got sort of recognizing that I maybe wanted to get out of the technical field.
So you do prepare.
I did, but, I didn't set out to say, okay, one day I'm going to be in management, one day I'm going to be in leadership position, one day I'm going to be in charge. I never did that.
Some people just go to MBA and they get some experience in the industry, or they go to MBA and they
right. An MBA, an MPA, Master's in Public Administration, any kind of master's degree will hone certain skills, okay? They will expose you to certain skills, they will hone certain skills, but then when you get out into the real world, that's when you apply those skills to the real world, okay? So it's good to have those skills, but you know, what you learn in a classroom, you have to apply. Otherwise, it's just information, right? So those the training classes I took, the leadership training classes that I took through FHWA and other opportunities, they helped me learn certain skills, be familiar with terminology, understand what to do in certain situations. But until I faced those situations, I didn't apply what I had learned until I was applying it, right? So.
And also, when you talk about leadership skills, when you apply for jobs, they also may say you have good leadership skills even for undergraduate, graduate, or whatever. So this type of skills, I mean, is a very valuable skills. I mean, the company wants, or I don't know how they manage it.
So I'll say one of the most important skills in leadership is initiative, right? And I did not understand that until I was actually in a leadership position. I didn't know that that's what I had. It's initiative, right? Which is just doing what needs to be done. So I saw something that needed to be done and I did it. Nobody asked me. Something annoyed me. I needed to change it. I wanted to fix it, right? I'm kind of a control person. So I wanted to fix it. I wanted to change it. So I just fixed it. I changed it. I took initiative and I didn't understand how valuable that was. That's a very key ingredient in leadership, right? Is taking initiative, not waiting to be told to, you know, that something needs to be done, doing it. And sometimes the job was kind of not a good job. I mean, it was hard and it was messy, but it needed to be done. And that is one way that you can be noticed, right, as you get out into the real world, is taking on those activities and taking on those tasks that nobody else wants to do. You will learn a huge amount, I promise you. Initiative is an incredibly valuable skill, particularly in a competitive environment. Because there'd be a ton of people who will be waiting, you know, wait to be told to do something. We don't need that, right?
So how about the skills about management or skills about the planning or something this kind? When you have a project, you need to assign the assignment to different groups and also how to divide the
Right.
project.
Right. So the question was about when you have a project and being able to assign work to other folks and.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is also part of leadership.
Yes. Yes. So you're managing the project, but you're leading the team. Okay. Again, so you'll notice there's a difference there.
Yeah.
So the one thing about being a leader is you still have to do work. Right? You still have to do work, and you have to do your own work. Right? So when you're working on a team, and as you're dividing up the work, everybody gets some, including you, leader. Okay? Including you.
It's not just about distribute work.
Right.
But it's just
It's not about delegation, right? Because you know, I can delegate everything and then stand back and say you're not doing it right. Okay? How are you going to feel about me if I do that? Right? I'm not actually doing anything, but I'm criticizing what you're doing. Okay? So as a leader, you have to remember, and even when you're managing a team and you still have your own work to do. You're still part of the team.
Okay.
Okay? So always remember that even if you're leading the team, you are part of the team and you have your own work to do.
Thank you.
And you need to do it, right? And if you're leading the team and somebody on the team is not doing their fair share or not doing their work, you might have to step in and do it for them because you can't let your project fail. You can't let your team fail. So you have to keep an eye on stuff and you have to be willing to step in and help the person, not take it over, help the person, try to understand why that person is not doing their piece. But ultimately, you have a deadline, you have a project, and your boss, your professor, whoever, isn't going to want to hear, well, you know, Joey didn't do his work, or Jane was sick and she didn't finish. That's not okay, right? That's not okay. So as a leader, you have to keep in touch with everything that's happening, but you have to do your work. Right?
Thank
It's
you.
not all about delegation. I tried. It's not all about delegation.
Maybe it's just an observation question. I mean, I think a lot of us tend to think, you know, in your case, we're doing purely technical work, and all of a sudden you the reality is, as you deliver projects, as you lead project teams, you're developing your leadership skills while you're still technical.
Yeah.
So I think that's something, I guess, maybe we want to keep in mind is that I think we often think about a career as you had a time when you were technical, you had a time you became a management person, and the reality is there's tons of shades of gray in
Correct.
between where you're not just one person, another, you're, so.
Yeah, that's true. And there are times when, even as the leader of my office, I have to get down and understand the technical issues of the problem, okay? So I do have to sit down and I'll get a set of plans or I'll get an environmental document and I'll have to read and understand the issues, the technical issues. That's where my master's degree comes in handy, okay? Because I have that technical expertise that I got, right, that I honed over my career, that I started with my undergrad and my master's degree, right, to help me understand the technical issue. But I may be able to take a step back and look at the political aspects of the situation, the financial aspects of the situation, where the folks that are on my team may be very focused on their technical aspect, and I have to step back as the leader and blend it all together. But you're right, nobody waved their magic wand and one day just puff made me a manager leader, right? That's true. I took opportunities to learn from the people, like I said, to learn from people that I admired, and if you work for a bad leader, a bad manager, a bad project person, you will learn a ton of what you don't want to be, right, and how you don't want to lead, and how you don't want to manage, and how, again, that's always very important, right? So that's one of the aspects. But yes, I got opportunities to lead small teams, and then I led more bigger teams and doing more important issues. But then I was served on. So it's very much. I didn't just all of a sudden one day become a leader, right? It took me, however many years, 10 years, 8, 10 years to really. And I'm learning something every day. I'm still learning. And I still fail.
I think it's really intriguing that you keep talking about failing. But that sort of sounds scary. Can you give us an example of?
So it's only a failure and scary if you don't learn what happened, okay? And so you learn from your failure to not do that again. So I will say I had a project where I was earlier in my career, and not everybody was in the same place. Okay, so I had people in other states and other areas, and so I treated everybody like they were just going to do their thing and turn it in, and then we were going to blend it all together, a miracle was going to occur, and the product was just going to be fantastic, okay? And that's not what happened. I didn't check in with my teammates. We didn't have, milestones, because I knew how I worked. And I knew that, if you gave me an assignment, I would do my assignment, I would work at it, I would develop it, finish it, do it, in a timely manner with the resources I had been given. I would give it back to you, and that was great. Well, one of the first times, and I remember it very well, so I had people around and I gave them their assignments. I didn't check in. We didn't have milestones. We had kind of random phone calls a little bit here and there, just to, how's everything? Oh, great, we're doing great. I believed them, right? I didn't do my job as the team leader. So when it came time to, probably about maybe a week out before it was due, and we had probably 6 months to work on this thing, we were nowhere near ready. We were nowhere near done. And that was my failure, because I didn't have milestones, I didn't have checks, I didn't say, hey, send in your drafts, let's all look at it, make sure we're all headed in the right direction, and more importantly, in the same direction, because I had just given everybody their assignments and said, okay, good luck, and that was not good. So I learned, and so we scrambled like hell for the last week, and we turned in a product that was probably, well, actually not probably, it was turned in a product that was not great. It was not our best work, but we had to deliver something, and I got yelled at a lot, but I learned that I needed to, and then the group went back, we were given an opportunity in a much shorter time frame, and we were able to fix it and provide a much better product. But we I, as the leader, did not do a good job of managing that team. So I learned the next time we had milestones, we had check-ins, everybody shared material, we had much more in-depth phone calls, you know, that's what I say. So I learned from my mistake.
I appreciate you sharing that with us. So I think we are past the 1:30
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I mean, we're just barely there. This has been awesome that you've shared all this with us. And I appreciate everybody online as well.
Yes,
So,
thank you.
you know, I think this is good. If anybody has any last questions, but I think we're good. I really appreciate Pam being here with us today. So maybe we can clap.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's awesome.
So if I didn't suck too bad for the first person to do this, hopefully y'all will have opportunities to have other folks come in and visit with y'all. But I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for your time. Thank you so much. Thank you.
So Brian has my phone number, and I will offer this up. If anybody wants to give me a call, just tell me, you know, tell me where this is, you know, that you heard me speaking at the university and you're part of the MATS UTC and where you're from. So if you have any other follow-up questions, I don't know if you have my information. You don't have my information up there.
I did not.
But I will. But if we want to, if you want to share it, get my email, get my phone number.
Pamela.Kordenbrock
Yes.
at DOT.gov.
Is this?
Does that work?
Yeah. Yeah. Pam, you want to type it in the chat
Here,
bar?
I can type it in. So we also have a great presentation, enjoyed it greatly.
Jeffrey, you're going to go far in this world. Thank you.
Yeah, there you go.
So we'll put my email on here and my phone number, and if y'all want to call me, ask me any questions, anything, I am available to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
hopefully that's correct for the
Thank you.
email. And then,
Yes.
okay.
And then phone number is 615-781-5776. That's my direct line.
Wow.
Okay. So just remind me of this. I'll remember because it's not like I get to do this every day. Yay. So just remind me, and I'm happy to visit with y'all. All right?
Thank you.
Thank you.